Good morning, horse racing enthusiasts. This is John. Today's Sunday, the 10th of October, and I wanted just to have a quick video before we go talk about any current day races. I think some things happened yesterday. It might be helpful for us to talk about. But first, I want to do a quick recap of the races that we selected yesterday. Two, I want to talk about a horse out on the West Coast, 2-year-old, Cave Rocks, outstanding horse. Three, the 2023 Derby Trail. It's not too late. And then four, I want to talk about, is it ethics, is it sportsmanship, or is it race riding? And there's some recent examples of some maybe some poor riding or maybe not so poor riding by jockeys. And I think it's an industry topic that we probably should consider here. So anyhow, let's start off with a recap of yesterday's picks. If you recall, we took a look at the ninth race at Keeneland, which was the start of a pick 3 that I bet. It was actually the middle of a pick 5 that I bet. That actually went all the way down to the last race when I ended up losing. But at any rate, what I liked in the ninth was the 2, 7, 8, 4. Specifically, I thought the 7 was the best horse, which is kind of crazy because the way that it worked out, the 7 went off at somewhere in the neighborhood of 5-1. I thought he was going to be the favorite. And my whole idea behind taking the 2, the 2 as the second best horse, was that I thought it was going to be better odds. The 2 ended up being the favorite. And you may further recall that the 2 had one race prior, had won convincingly, so the 2's name was Loggins, had won convincingly first time out, had speed, Brad Cox's horse. Thomason was 401. It looked like a good horse for that race, but again, it's a green banana, meaning it's a young horse who's gonna change a number of times before now in let's say the Kentucky Derby if he gets there. Forte was the 7. Had already won a grade 1, but if you recall, it was run in the slop up at Saratoga, so I had some caution as it relates to that. At any rate, the race ran pretty well. It was I was really pleased to see the way the race unfolded. It was along the lines how I anticipated. There was a lot of speed in it. There were closes that came in, and if you watch the race, this is part of my number 4 here that we'll talk about later, so I don't want to get too much into it. But Forte, ridden by Irad Ortiz, had the outside position coming down the stretch with the 2 Loggins and Florent Geroux. And I'm going to take some clips of this, but you can see Irad actually waving his whip in front of the other horse, probably 5 different times, coming down the stretch, closing in on the 2 who's on the rail. And to my point right here, is there any ethics in racing? Maybe not. Is it good sportsmanship, bad sportsmanship, or is it just plain old race riding? And he's kind of jockey that you want on your horse, but you don't want him on the horse that's competing against you. So, at any rate, this was a great race. There was an inquiry at the end. It ended up standing, so the 7, who I thought was going to hurt me, did, and the 2 came in second. Now, that being said, I said in the video to do a 2-8 exacta, which I did. I did like a $1 exacta box 2-8. Those are 2 horses that I liked. Longer shots, $1 exacta box, $2 bet, and didn't come in. However, I also did a $3 bet on the 2-7 exacta, which did pay. So that gave me a little cash flow. So that's a little inside baseball there. So I thought that was a pretty good bet. The next race in that series, the only thing I can talk about really is that the 6 kind of held on for me. That's fine. I didn't have the 9 in the pick 3, so I was out. But this 10th race, the 11th race. Sorry, that was the 10th race I just spoke of. The 11th race, the 8. I identified that 8 in the 11th race, and just to sort of I think it's really important in horse racing handicapping to create feedback loops so you understand the decisions that you make aren't just willy-nilly. They were based on some sort of thought process, right? And how do you refine that thought process without sort of looking at it and going back and sort of critiquing those decisions at the time? But the 8's name was Call Me Fast, if you recall. And Call Me Fast had progressed each of his 4 previous races, ran a 74, which I projected could project to win if he continues to improve in the rate that he had in the past, to the 81 Beyer par for the race. And so the way that it unfolded, the horse took the lead, gate to wire, ran really well. I mean, it was a little closer, in the early stages, but at the turn just kicked into gear and won. I don't think it was ever in question. I don't really know the jockey Areta, but from a handicapper's standpoint, it was something that gave me it gave me a lot of confidence in my handicapping to be identifying a horse like this, 6-1 morning line, went off at 10-1. All right, 10-1. That's a great pick by any of us. I had $10 to win on that horse, and duly rewarded for the risk in the handicapping that took place. So, very good. So, at the end of the day, pick 3 didn't work. My pick 5, it would have paid somewhere in the neighborhood of $400. I lost in the last race because I took the 9 in it. The last race was the 10th race of that pick 3. And so, at any rate, a good day of racing, though. Had good cash flow and ended up for the day, so that's good. I wanted to take you quickly, while we have a few more minutes left, to Santa Anita. So yesterday was a good day for, in general, for, the juvenile horses. There were a couple of wins in your end. So in the previous race that we just talked about, that in the ninth race, that is, the 7 Forte, is going to go to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, right? He won that race yesterday, and now he's going to go forward. Well, similarly, in the Santa Anita race 9 yesterday was also, race 8 was the American Pharoah. So that was a for 2-year-olds, $300,000 race, won in the 16th on the turf, on the dirt, and I just want to point out this one horse, right? Because you're going to be hearing, I think, a lot of this horse. It's a Baffert-trained horse, so that's pretty standard. Hernandez is the jockey. First time out as a maiden special weight, ran a speed figure of 101, and then second time out won a Grade 1 race, the Del Mar Futility, and with a 98. So this horse was a prohibitive favorite. But it's a good horse, took the lead, never in question. But I want to point something out in the handicapping line. This helps handicappers in the future. And it shows the difficulty in the races in the speed figures. Now, there are probably some sophisticated handicappers say this is all bunk. But I'm going to say, like, this horse, let's assume for a second, and maybe that's a bad assumption, that it ran similar races. The speed was a little bit slower, actually, in the easier race. But in the second race, his overall speed figure was 3 points lower than in his first. And I just want to point that out as that's the step up in the difficulty of the race. You're now going against winners. You're going to a graded stakes race. And but still, the horse destroyed. Cave Rocks is the name of the horse. It's an arrogant offspring. I've noticed a couple of things this weekend alone, and it's happened over the last few weekends. Arrogant horses are winning. That means his babies are winning, right? And this is the last time we're going to see them come through the Derby Trail, because these 2-year-olds, I think it's his second crop, but he unfortunately, Arrogant died, and so we won't see any more of these. But they're really being look like they're special, and it's really saying his genetics that he's pushing forward into the pool, or did push forward in the pool, is very good and very strong. So look for those Arrogant babies. They're going to win. All right. So this kind of parlays right into the 2002-3 Derby trail. And you're like, what? You're talking about the Kentucky Derby already? Yes, I am. So there's already been like 4 races run that get points for the Derby, and a couple have been overseas, so there hasn't been a lot. But yesterday was 2. There was 1 on the Iroquois a couple of weeks ago. So it's happening, right? It's happening. So I'm keeping track of those. I'm watching those races. And this is what I want to say. Cave Rocks, Logins, those horses that we're talking about today, these juvenile horses, they're going to factor in to the Derby talk at one point or another. There'll be injuries in this, hopefully nothing severe, and there'll be pushes in training and delays, and maybe some of them won't make it. But these are the names that are going to be bouncing around. And like I say to horse racing enthusiasts, why not embrace that now? Why not get familiar with these horses now in the early races? You understand their tendencies. You understand where they're going. Do they like to run the pack? Do they like to run the outside, the inside? And this gets into your intuitive understanding of the horse rather than studying up in the last week. Let's study up as we go. So that's all I have to say about that for now. But I will be doing a separate folder in on the channel about the 2023 Derby Trail and prep. The other thing I want to say is we're going to do a video later today. I keep promising this, or threatening. I'm not sure which one it is. But we're going to do a video on this ethics. I think I'm going to change it a little bit. Ethics or sportsmanship or lack thereof, or race riding, right? The term race riding in the industry is how the horse jockeys try to sort of engage different horses in different ways and try to crowd out different horses and bring up that natural instinct that the horse has, the other horse, the competing horse, has to sort of be herded, right? They're herding animals. So sometimes these result in fouls, sometimes they result in disqualifications. We had an example yesterday where there was an objection, and it was not allowed, right? Some feel like it should have. Some are confused by Keeneland's rules recently, and we'll get into that. But also, we're going to go back to the Lucas Classic and Rich Strike and the jockey Sonny Leone, and leaning in and sort of elbowing and elbowing Tyler Gaffleone in that race. In Hot Rod Charlie, there's another nuance to that discussion, and that is, did Hot Rod Charlie have illegal shoes on at the time? So, all right, so that's coming today. Hopefully, I talked with my production manager, and it looks like we're going to tape that later today. So, and I think I want to do a couple of good races at Keeneland today. Again, a couple of graded stakes. I like to focus on those. Those graded stakes are where you have the best horses, the best jockeys, and usually the best conditions. So I like to handicap those because they're probably the most honest and most ethical. So at any rate, that's it for today, horse racing enthusiasts. Hopefully you made a little money yesterday. Hopefully we talked a little bit about strategy that helps us in the future. And good luck at the track. Thanks. Bye.